This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show. And this is your host, Greg Gilbert, a.k.a. the Python Hyena. And folks, I grew up watching Laverne and Shirley and various sitcoms like that, but I remember Laverne and Shirley very well, and I remember this very distinguished individual by the name of Squiggy. We remember Lenny and Squiggy. Squiggy was the coolest, and I have the gentleman who played him on the phone with me today, David L. Lander. Welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. What's the weather like in California?
Oh, it's the usual. If we're not having an earthquake, then we have nice weather.
Well, we got nice weather here, but like I said, our winters are horrible. So.
Well, I know, but that's what you expect in Canada. Yeah.
Have you ever been out the New Brunswick way before?
No, the closest I've come is Vancouver.
Okay.
I did a movie there, I think. I did 2 movies there.
Okay, what 2 movies did you do there?
God, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me.
Oh.
Well, they were pretty terrible movies. I mean, I really can't remember the names of them because I sort of wiped them out of my head. But some of your listeners may recognize me from one of those movies, but I don't know which one. So.
Well, you know what?
What?
I'm going to tell you, I had somebody ask me the other day how I come to contact you, and I was like, well, it's interesting because we got to go way back to 1990. Of course, you got to stick with me here because I remember Wes Craven, the late Wes Craven made a movie called Scream.
God, yeah.
Yeah, and Scream was one of these gory slasher films, very well made, but I remember Henry Winkler played the principal of the movie.
That's right.
Yeah, he was the Fonz, of course, in Happy Days, and that was kind of and Laverne and Shirley was kind of like the sister version of Happy Days, you know, and of course the Fonz, or Henry Winkler, meets his end as the principal in that movie. And I remember 10 years later, Scary Movie comes out, and I'm watching that, and I remember the moment they showed the Principal Squigman, and the moment they showed you, I laughed so loud, and nobody else, I don't think, got the joke. Because
I guess they did.
Well, here's...
You know, it's funny with that. I mean, it wasn't funny, but I remember when I did that movie, they wanted me to dress completely like Squiggy. I said, but Henry didn't dress like Fonzie for it. So what joke are we playing here? And they had an argument. They went back to the people who created the movie, and I sort of gave in. I said, no, I don't want to do it, and that's it. So I said, I'll only do it if I wear a regular suit. So that was basically the compromise that was written just so that people wouldn't think, I don't know what they would think, but we just said, well, let's try to be true to the original Scream. They didn't have Fonzie as Fonzie, so when I was Squiggy as Squiggy, that was it.
Well, what I found funny, like, I don't know, I think the rest of the audience were maybe too young to remember Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, because I just took the laughing, because it's like, the Fonz, of course, and Squiggy are both cool, but they're cool to opposite ends, you know?
Well, I always thought one of the things that we never did on the show, we had crossover shows where Happy Days would be on Laverne and Shirley. I said, well, they never tackle anything that's important. But if we did, I'd like to find out just what Lenny thought, what Squiggy thought of Fonzie. And my thought was that Squiggy has Lenny as a best friend. Mm-hmm. He meets Fonzie. He's totally enamored by Fonzie. So he tries to sell out Lenny so that Fonzie will be his best friend. And I thought, that would be great, you know. I mean, he has no loyalty to Lenny, but he'll go to Fonzie. But Gary Marshall just nodded his head and said, okay, go to your room.
Well, like I said, with Henry Winkler being in Scream, it's like, how do you do a parody of Scream? You do Scary Movie. So how do you do a parody of Henry Winkler, a.k.a. the Fonz and Scream? You bring in the guy who played Squiggy. And I think that's one of my favorite scenes in Scary Movie.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Did you enjoy doing that?
Well, I didn't really meet anyone. It wasn't like a film I was in. I was just in a scene, and yeah, it was all right. I mean, I wasn't totally enamored with it. That's one thing, but I guess it was good.
I wish you had more scenes in it. I thought you were great. You worked really well with Kurt Fuller, who played the cop.
Yeah, well, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course Anna Faris, who is absolutely hilarious. She could play like a daughter to Squiggy today.
Well, she could do a lot of things. I really think she's very talented.
And Dave Sheraton, of course, as Officer Doofus. That was also a pretty funny crossover on David Arquette as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about any of your movies, we got to talk about something that's really, really important, as your battle with MS, which I believe Richard Pryor had that too. Did he not?
Yeah, he got it before. Well, did he get it before I did? I don't know. He got it right around the same time I did.
Yeah.
You had nothing to do with each other, but that was...
Well, when people mention that, like before I even knew you had it, I remember that Richard Pryor had it. And I guess you were diagnosed, was it 1984, was it right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you come to find out that you had this?
Well, it was basically, I was doing a benefit at a local theater, and on the way to the show, I parked my car in the garage, got out of the car, and I couldn't make it to the stage door, which was about 50 feet away, but it might have been 100 feet. Didn't make any difference. I couldn't walk that distance without losing any power in my legs, and that had never happened to me before. That moment. So then I just kind of got myself backstage and sat in my first scene place and said, I'm never going to move from this place, so this is where I'll be. And I did the scene. It was just one scene, and I did it, and then I realized something's wrong here. I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew it was something I'd never had before, and I hope I never get again, but that was my first adventure into it. And then I walked out of the place. I did okay, and then next 2 days later, I think I woke up and I couldn't walk. So I said, you better take me to the hospital, and they did, and they diagnosed me with MS.
How have you been able to cope with this?
Well, it's been so long ago. I mean, I suppose I've coped with it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was still a lot of things. I can't even remember what they were, but there were a lot of things in the beginning that I was sort of afraid of. I was definitely, anyone who gets diagnosed with this disease, it's at the prime of your life when you were in your 20s or whenever, but it's a hell of a body blow. And I don't know. I guess I got out of it better than most, or I don't know. I'm still living with it, so it's not like it's ended or anything. But
I gotta say, you got a good support system in Kathy. By the way, congratulations on a very long marriage. Yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah, my daughter got married, and that was great. And yeah, that's fun. And her husband is a great guy, and everybody's totally happy.
Your daughter does video game voices too, doesn't she?
Oh, she does a lot. She's also the voice of the Walt Disney series, Goldie and Bear, you know.
Okay.
That she plays Goldilocks, and that's about 1,000 episodes.
Okay.
She's pretty well healed, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
well,
she did an incredible job. I'm very, very proud of her.
Oh, yeah, you should be. You hear a lot about marriages not lasting in Hollywood and whatnot and in the industry, but like I said, you've You've been married for, what was it, 1979?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I saw the video online when I was doing some research prior to me even reaching out to contact you, where you did this walk with various members of the cast of Laverne and Shirley to raise awareness and for MS. Yeah. It was kind of endearing seeing. I loved your determination to do this, and that you got really good support system there.
Oh yeah, it was terrific.
How did that go?
Well, it went pretty well. I mean, like everything, you don't really know what it is you're going to be doing. I mean, you're going to a walk, and the walk didn't seem like much 2 weeks ago, but now a walk is like a walk. What makes you think I can walk? So, it's a question that I wish I probably could have answered better 20 years ago, because I really don't remember it that well. But I remember when the cast got together and I got in a wheelchair and I said, push it, Mom, push it, Lenny, push it. That's about it.
Yeah, you've worked with Michael McKean a very, very long time.
We went to school together. That was our tie-in. We went to Carnegie, which is now Carnegie Mellon. We went to Carnegie Tech. We're both drama students there, and that's where Lenny and Squiggy were formed, actually. But that was where we connected.
Was Lenny and Squiggy formed before Laverne and Shirley?
Oh, yeah, way before.
How did you...
In fact, they weren't Lenny and Squiggy. They were Lenny and Anthony. And the way the folklore goes, what's true, is it was a character that Penny was aware that I did with Michael before she even met Michael. It was just these legendary characters that we did in college that became kind of infamous when I moved to the West Coast. And then when Michael moved out here, they wanted to say, well, what do they like together? And Lenny and Anthony were displayed actually at a party to celebrate the selling of Laverne and Shirley. We weren't even on yet, but Penny said, well, I want to show the writers what you can do, and they've never seen you. And could you invite Michael to the party, and maybe you guys will end up doing Lenny and Anthony as they were. Well, we'll see. I don't know where they do that. That's childish. Well, we went there, and I think Rob Reiner was married to her then, and said, so you're going to do Lenny and Anthony, which were the two characters. And the whole party, we were about 200 people, the party shut up. I couldn't believe it. And Michael and I were just sitting there. Everyone turned to us and said, okay, do them. And we did a bit we had never done before. None we've ever done since, but it was very, very funny. Everybody laughed. And then when I went home, there was a phone call from Gary Marshall asking if I wanted to do those characters for the show.
Fantastic. Where did the name Squiggy come from?
Squiggy came from a derivation of Lenny and Anthony's cousin. Anthony had a cousin named Vito Squigliani. And he was known as Squiggy in shorthand. And his basic thing was he was the hitman for the school mob.
Okay.
That's all he ever did. All we did was talk about him as some legend. Oh, wait till Squiggy gets here. Well, that was Squiggy get you. But we never did him. And it was Lenny and Anthony. And then when Gary said, we got too many Italians in the show, make them something else. So we went and said, well, let's make him Squiggy, and let's make him German as opposed to Italian. So that was it. So Vito Squigliano became Andrew Squigman.
Okay.
End of it.
Okay. And it's one of the most memorable characters to come out of that series.
Yeah, they were pretty memorable, yeah.
Especially when you would enter the room and, hello.
Well, yeah, that was a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. But no, Michael McKean worked really well with you, and of course he went on, to do This Is Spinal Tap. Were you ever approached to be part of that movie?
Oh, all the time. I was approached up until the last minute.
What had happened that you didn't do the movie?
Well, I didn't know they were going to shoot that day. I was in Philadelphia, and I told the producer, I'm in Philadelphia. I can come back anytime you want to shoot me. Well, she didn't tell me. The guys hated my guts for going to Philadelphia and sabotaging their movie, which I didn't.
No.
But that was the end of that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I was going to play the chauffeur.
Okay.
It's a great, memorable part, but that was the part.
Well, you and Michael did appear in quite a few movies together. You were in Steven Spielberg's 1941.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was that experience like in working with Spielberg?
Well, it was basically a terrible experience. I mean, I knew Steven. I liked him. But it was a terrible movie. I mean, it was a movie that wanted to be it was a movie that really wanted to be it's a mad, 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 mad world, but it didn't even, oh God, my phone is driving me crazy, but it didn't come close, I think. It missed.
I thought it tried to be Dr. Strangelove, but yeah, you got a point.
Well, I always think with the writer, Bob Zemeckis, who I later worked with on Used Cars, he said basically what Used Cars was like they'd written a $2,500 movie and they tried to squeeze it into a $200,000 budget.
Okay.
And what they wrote as a little, this would be fun to see the way people reacted, thinking there was going to be another attack. Well, that was what the idea was, but once Spielberg saw it and he thought he could make a big deal out of it, it all changed. He wanted to make a mad world, and it's a mad, 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 mad world. It was a great movie, but everyone in it had been on TV for 20 years, so you knew those characters.
Mm-hmm.
This film, we didn't know any of these people. We knew John Candy was funny, yeah, we knew John Belushi was funny, but there wasn't anything. I mean, well, anyway, I don't want to go into that movie.
Okay. And of course, you did Used Cars, which also with Michael McKean as well.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kurt Russell, of course, a young Kurt Russell before he became an action
Great
star.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
Yeah, you liked working with Bob Zemeckis?
Oh, very much. Yeah, he was fun.
Yeah.
Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis. Mm-hmm.
And Holy Moses, I have to admit, I have not seen Holy Moses.
Well, I got to admit, you're probably going to continue along that line. Well, that was a terrible movie.
Okay.
I mean, it was a good script. I read the script, and it was pretty good, but yeah, it was bad. We got the wrong director. We got the wrong cast. We got everything. Everything was wrong about that movie. I mean, maybe somebody saw it and they loved it. Well, they're entitled to their own opinion. But I gotta admit, I didn't like it much.
And one that I just discovered just recently when I was looking at your credits, Pandemonium. I looked at the trailer for that. Now, good or bad?
Every movie you talk about, I had a bad experience in. Pandemonium was done with the Credibility Gap, which was the group that I really earned my wings with. We were a satirical group on radio here in Los Angeles for about 2 years. We were on AM originally, then we went to FM.
Okay.
And it was quite a good group, I thought. And Pandemonium was a film that was made basically to take advantage of bits other people did in other places. In other words, if you did this bit and it was funny at the Groundlings, we'll do it and we'll film it and try to make it work for the movie. Same with the Credibility Gap did this takeoff on the Tomorrow Show. Remember the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder? And we did it, and they filmed it. It was a really good performance. And the idea was, when we saw the movie, is there's a couple making love, and the Tomorrow Show's on in the background. It could have been the regular Tomorrow Show. Didn't matter. It was our satire.
Okay.
They totally destroyed it. And
Okay.
we were thoroughly unhappy. And that movie, God, I don't know. Maybe it made 10 cents. It could have made 10 cents. I guess it was a loser.
Okay. I haven't seen Pandemonium, but the trailer looked appealing, but I guess it's a
Pandemonium, that's another movie. That was terrible.
Yeah.
That was a movie originally that I did because I liked the title. Thursday the 12th was the original title.
Okay.
It's funny. It never got funnier after that. They lost the title. They lost the... Oh, it was awful. So, there's another movie I'm in. But I don't really even remember what I played in it. I just remember it was rather a bad experience. With some good people in it. Carol Kane.
Yeah, Carol Kane, yeah.
I mean, but it's a terrible movie.
What about Funland with Bruce Maher?
Funland was probably my best role. I played a killer clown.
Okay.
And who used to own the amusement park, and he got nuts, and now he was assassinating everyone who took over the amusement park. It was kind of lame, but nonetheless, it was a good part for me, but it didn't get any distributions, and no one really saw it.
Yeah, but lately, though, it's been gaining a little bit of a cult following.
For what?
I don't know. I looked it up there online, and then the research, they said it didn't do anything on its initial release, but has since gained a following, so...
Well, good luck to them.
And of course, I gotta say, this is one of the best movies you were part of. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
That was fun.
Yeah, I've had Joanna Cassidy on here earlier this year. Of course, she was in the movie, and of course, you're the head weasel.
That's right. Smartass. The head weasel. The weasel with a gun.
A weasel with a gun. And of course, they say, that famous word, "You'll laugh yourself to death."
Yeah, that's right.
How?
I had to record that twice because nobody understood that. That was a key part. They couldn't laugh because they would laugh themselves to death. Well, the line was okay, but nobody really understood it. So they had me repeat it several times and beat it into the script. Just remember, they'll die if they laugh.
I always loved that scene where there's a big car chase and they go around a sharp turn and you see the back of the weasel's heads and all their heads are knocking together.
It was beautifully done. He did a great job with that movie.
Yeah, and of course Zemeckis directed that as well. I think easily one of his best films.
It was a lot of fun, and the way he directed, when he did the voiceovers, the cartoon voiceovers, it was great because he had never done that before. Never done cartoon voiceover, so he had his own idea with it. So he set up the studio, and he'd put a mic on you, and you could walk while you did the scene, so you could really feel it out and really have a feeling that there's something going on. And of course there isn't, but it was for that movie, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I know you worked with Zemeckis before in used cars, but how did he come to approach you to voice the head weasel?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, he really just voiced me, asked me to go on an audition, and I auditioned. It was the part for the head weasel, but I'm sure they considered other people for the part, but it was just I got lucky, I guess, and got the head weasel.
And you knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't believe Bob Hoskins was not nominated for an Oscar for that movie, because he was...
It's true, that movie was really overlooked.
Yeah, and he was brilliant in it. He played opposite all these cartoons perfectly.
Great.
Yeah.
And at times, when I had to do the words, when I had to put my soundtrack in, you would see, well, basically he was acting with the assistant director. So the assistant director is the guy I had to match, because otherwise Haskin would be reacting very differently to something, So if there was a reading that I didn't much care for, but it didn't make any difference because Haskin relates to the reading, so I couldn't change the reading, so it was done just the same way. So I kind of gave the assistant director's performance in it.
Yes. Yes, and not many. I mean, Bedknobs and Broomsticks had it in it, but not a lot of movies came out with that style of animation and.
Well, it's very expensive, you know.
Yeah.
They knew it when we did it. They said, this will start a trend, but once they find out the price, it'll end it real quick.
Yeah, and Christopher Lloyd also terrific casting in it too. Mm-hmm. There's a moment where he's like starting to trip over these balls that are on the floor, and I loved how his legs were going, you know. And of course we learned, of course, the big secret, you know. And again, the movie was very, very well written. Like, I didn't think Space Jam paid off very well. There wasn't much of a plot to Space Jam, but I think Who Framed Roger Rabbit was very, very clever in how they tied
the
everything.
The thing about Roger Rabbit was, and it's probably true about the people who wrote the book too, there was a definite love for movies. Mm-hmm. They really understood what it was that they were parodying or attacking or whatever it was. They understood the process of movie making, and that was what the film was about. You know, a different kind of movie making, but it was about that glory era of the 1930s, and they really got it down right.
They did. Now, you also wrote a book on your experience with MS. I'm trying to remember the title. It was
Fall Down Laughing.
Fall Down Laughing. How... there's a subpart to it. And I looked at it earlier. How Squiggy fell down and not told anybody, or what?
Well, I kept it a secret for about 18 years. I mean, as much of a secret as I could keep. You know, every so often say, "Why do you walk funny? What's the matter with you?" So you'd give them like, "Well, I was in a car accident when I was a kid. I had polio when I was growing up." You know, a lot of different lies that you tell to basically explain what it is that's happening to you. Oh, I have MS. Oh, sorry, you're fired. So you couldn't do that.
Well, how long did it take you to write the book?
Well, when I wrote the book, I probably would have taken a much longer time, but they told me you've got 6 months to write the book. So it was 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think all things considered, the book came out pretty good. I mean, it did do what I wanted it to do. I really wanted people who have MS to read it.
Yes.
And understand that they're not the only ones going through the same kind of shit.
Do you have a website or anything like that people could go to, or where they could donate to this cause?
Gee, I used to. I don't think I do anymore. Well, they could. I don't know. Jeepers, it's terrible. I can't even remember the name of one I used to have. But no.
Because I think it'd be a great idea. Like, I would donate to something like this, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it'd be great. I mean, to exchange, to meet people who are going through the same thing you are and what they say about it and how they tackled the problem or how they dealt with it is fun. It's interesting.
Do you ever get the chance to go to any of the conventions or anything and like meet the fans and sign autographs and talk to them about this?
I've been to those autograph sessions. They weren't as big as they are now, but yeah, I mean, they're okay. I mean, you know, it's basically, you know, it's, I don't know, it's basically celebrating a part of your career that's over with, you know. I mean, it's nice, but it only lasts so long.
Yeah. Well, we remember you very fondly, and of course, you know, I was very honored to get in touch with you, and
thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to make a donation towards this cause, MS, for anybody that suffered from this. I know there's websites out there. I don't have one right in front of me, but I would gladly make a donation in your honor.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, and you got any projects coming up here in the near future?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's basically I concentrate on my daughter's career, which is a lot more interesting than mine. So that's basically it. I just basically retired.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about her. What she got coming up?
Well, right now she's doing an unauthorized version of Bridesmaid. Remember that film, Bridesmaid?
Yep,
Well,
absolutely.
they're doing a musical of it here in town,
Mm-hmm.
using original songs. Remember the jukebox musicals, I think they call them. And she's basically the lead in it. She's quite good, and it's very good. And they're going to do it for another. They've done it for about 6 months. I think they're going to do it for another 3 months or so here in town. And also, she is, like I said before, she's the voice of Goldie on Goldie and the Bear, which is a Disney series, which is quite popular. And she's always got something coming up. So if she was here right now, I'm sure she'd give you a long list, a longer list than I do. But she's wonderful.
Well, I'm glad that she's following in your footsteps and carries on definitely the voice talents, but also the comedic elements as well.
Yeah, and she can sing. So there you go.
Now, what does she think of Squiggy?
She's very mature about it. She thinks he's fine.
She's not try to be a female Squiggy?
No, in fact, one of the more interesting things, she did a version. We did a song called Christmas Eve Night at the Poorhouse, which was what they did for the first Christmas show.
Okay.
And I said, well, you could sing that song, but you should sing. It's really a ballad. If you didn't sing it doing an impression of me, but just done and sung it right, I think as silly a song as it is, it would sound better if you did it serious. And she did it serious, and she got great laughs, and it worked well.
Oh, perfect.
There's a little anecdote.
Okay. Well, you know what? It was a huge honor to have you come on here today and talk about your dealings with MS and the various films, the ones you loved and ones that you were disappointed with.
Goodness gracious. Ones I was disappointed with, it's like, that'll turn off a lot of people.
Well, you loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I've got that home on Blu-ray, so I'm quite fond of that one as well,
Well, thank you.
Yeah. But I'm very, very fond of what I grew up with. I'm 45 right now, and I remember growing up watching Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and I loved coming home after school and watch Laverne and Shirley, and waiting for Lenny and Squiggy to interrupt the lives of those two women who would end up kicking them out of their apartment.
I know. That was really the reason that we wrote the first. We were in on the writing in the beginning. But the first hello joke,
Yeah.
which is like a big thing, the only reason it happened was we couldn't figure out any way. The next scene was the guys give the girls some costumes they've stolen from a Hollywood museum that Squeezy's uncle owns. It's kind of a contrived theory, but that was the theory. And we thought, why would they ever let these guys in? So we figured, well, if they enter on a joke, no one will ask questions. And it was basically, don't worry, Shirley, you're Prince Charming, and walk right through that door. Hello. And that was the first one. And but nobody said, how come they let them in? Wasn't the door locked? Nobody asked any questions. So we figured, well, that's a good way to get them in without a key. That's it.
Yeah, they would enter and they would be leaving quick.
And no one ever questioned it. I don't believe it. No one.
And Penny Marshall with that L on her shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that show very, very.
L.
Yep. And anytime they got in a tiff, I remember that episode. Shirley ripped the L off her shirt, and then she took Shirley's spoon and bent it in half.
I know, yeah.
They were always
That's a break.
Yes, that was a wonderful show, and you and Michael McKean, of course, were scene stealers all the way, and we appreciate your contribution in that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, is there anything else that you would like to promote or plug before we close off?
afraid not.
No? Well, before you go, would you mind very much doing a plug for my show?
Sure, I don't mind at all.
Yeah. Just state your name and if you don't mind, say you played Squiggy in Laverne and Shirley, and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert, and my show's called Python's Paradise.
Okay. Hi, this is David Lander. You know me from Laverne and Shirley. I played Squiggy. I'm listening now to Gary's show here on, which I can't remember.
Python's Paradise.
Here on who?
Python's Paradise.
Gary's show, Python's Paradise. And that's it.
New Brunswick, Canada, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, my memory has skipped me. It's in New Brunswick, Canada.
There we go. That's all right, you know. I've had some people come on here and have to go through that 4 or 5 times.
I know. Well, this is a natural talent I have.
There you go. Well, you know what? I will make a donation to MS. I'll do that in your honor.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And when this is ready to be sent out, I will send the link to Kathy, and and it'll be up here for a little while. Eventually, it'll go to my YouTube channel, as I told you. So when that happens, it'll have a permanent home there.
Well, that sounds fair.
All right. Well, God bless you, and thank you so much for the honor.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you, and I'll